But I am so happy to be here today and to celebrate and begin to celebrate with the current staff about Ada S. McKinley. Miss Edwards and I don't know what you all call her, but I'll call her Miss Edwards. We started on 110th Street, all right? And so this is going to get to Miss Ada because that was at a time when the agency was threatened to be closed because of some inappropriate activities that was going on with the children, with foster parents, how they were recruited and those kinds of things and paid and things. And so when I came on and Ms. Edwards came on, we were on a 30-day operations. So that means they gave us 30 days worth of money. We're going to see what you do and we'll see if you bring the agency back up to standards. And then at the end of that 30 days, we'll give you another 30 days. So we went on with that for about 6 months, maybe 6 to 9 months on the 30 days. Then they gave us a 60-day, 6 months, and then we went to a year, and then we got on a regular licensing, agency licensing cycle. So just to let you know, some of the history and some of the dark days that the agency went through, but with the spirit of Ada S. McKinley, I think that is what continued to prevail through the service and just made us continue to work and to build so that we could have you here today. So we want to thank you all for showing up, and hopefully you all are showing out, and hopefully you'll know how important the work is that you do. And so I don't know if you have the history. I know that when we used to get started here at the agency, they made us go through orientation and they had us going through the entire history. And sometimes you kind of just take that for granted, yeah, I'm here today. But I'm hoping that you'll go back and try to remember Ada S. McKinley, because through hardships, she prevailed. And so she was the African-American woman in the South and born and grew up and married and had children. And so that was always fascinating to me because I love to hear how married women work and still keep their marriages and take care of their community. So that's just a big thing for me. But I also just remember the tragedy of the diphtheria taking her 3 children away. And then that one made me say, man, how does one survive that? Then she and her husband moved to Chicago, and then they had a 4th child. And shortly after that, then the husband died. And so it was like, man, how does one keep themselves grounded and rooted in life, when you have these sets of tragedies? But it does happen, and so I just hope to share the spirit of Ada S. McKinley with the staff today so that you can remember when things get a little hectic, as they sometimes do in life, you came from something. You are not just out, from anybody. I mean, you are here working every day from a person who was rooted and grounded in love, and who was rooted and grounded in determination for herself and for her people. And so sometimes we think we don't have anything to offer, but she is an ideal and a reminder that you have something. So she had something. She had a kitchen. She could cook. She had a heart. So she put all those 3 things together and then began to serve. And life is really, the best parts of life are really about service, to tell you the truth. At this stage in my life, I can honestly say the best parts of life are about service. And so, I'm going to leave these papers for Ms. Edwards to make copies, and hopefully through the year, you'll get a chance to kind of review and just see what kind of person that you are working under and the spirit that goes with her. I think that that's a good history to know. One of the joys that I had as a recruitment specialist, and then I was a recruitment supervisor, was one day one of the foster parents said, well, Miss McKinley, you know, things are just so and so, and so I wanted to do something, and she was just talking, and then she said, and Miss McKinley, and I said, what is she thinking? And so I thought about it, I said, well, you know, I don't want to, you know, deceive her or anything, but I like being called Miss McKinley, because if I could keep any of that spirit within me, then somebody recognizes that a part of her that's within me, that it was certainly an honor. So Ms. Edwards got to tell me when to sit down, but as I go to my seat, I want to say that about 2 days before Ms. McKinley died, they were doing the opening of the first center on 34th in Michigan, and she had about $1.34 in her purse. That was $2, but it wasn't $5. And that was a sad part for me. So one of the things that I said and committed to, and I've not mastered it yet, but it's a commitment, is that when people are in social service and they give their lives, they should not have to be poor and struggling. So I am trying to figure out how we who are in social service, who give as servants to the community, we don't have to be poor. So you all can look forward to hearing something from Alicia Spears, aka Ed.S. McKinley. We can talk about how we're gonna make us some money. All right. Thank you very much.
We had a kid that was really kind of going off the rails, and Felton said he was going to step in and provide support. And one of the things he did was he took the kid to Disney World. You know why? Because Felton told me, if you take a kid to Disney World, it will change their lives. So, didn't quite change his life, but I just loved it. I mean, I never forgot that. And I've forgotten a lot of things, but I never forgot that story with Kunta. And then later on in life, we met because our paths crossed as we traveled to Africa. And I still have some tapes from a shared kind of a trip that we took together. So I want you to meet Felton and hear about his journey.
I'd like to talk a little bit about my journey. I'll just be short about it. I came into foster care at the age of 6. My father had abused me. He basically tied me to a kitchen chair, both legs and arms, and he beat me with an extension cord. And I had a lot of lacerations. 5 in the morning, I unlocked the door and I ran. And I was fortunate that a very nice woman found me in the park. She called the police, and that's how I was brought into the system. I left the system at the age of 9, came back home with my father. More abuse started to happen, and I came back in at 14. Once I came back at 14, it was, foster care is one of those things where when you're in it, you think it's the worst thing in the world. Every home is terrible. Everybody's doing you wrong. So I went through 6 different foster homes. And I finally ended up at a home of this beautiful woman. And one of the things you should know about me is that I never met my mother. So I never had someone that I could call mom. I could never force my mouth to say mom to anybody. So every time you place me in a home, I call them Mrs. whatever their name was. I never called them. But this home, when I ended up in this home, Mrs. Lee's home, she was very kind, she was very caring. And we established such a strong bond that I had no problem calling her mom. And the father was equally caring and nurturing. And I'll finish that story up, but I'll come back. Let me back up because I was telling the story at the table. And the gentleman at the table said, you need to tell that story when you get up there. So one of the things I said, being in foster care, I really didn't appreciate everything that was going on around me. Sure, there were some bad placements, there were some really good placements, there were some good services. One of the things that I didn't appreciate was how young a lot of the social workers were. lot of them are straight out of college, early 20s, and they're dealing with some heavy subject matter. And I had this one particular social worker, her name was Portia Rice. And I happened to be, we were working on me getting to college and so on, and I was at her office and she needed a form, which I didn't have. I'm like, it's at home. She's like, okay, here, take my car. She gave me the key to her car. I went out to the staff parking lot. You know, hey, brother. So she gave me the key to her car. I drove home. I got the form. I came back, got it in time, and kept on going. Another touching story was Eric and Gail Spencer. They were wonderful social workers for me. And at one point, you know, he wanted to get me out of the environment. So he invited me down to the Gold Coast, where they lived at the time, to, you know, hang out on the balcony and look at, you know, I think he was across the street, I'm trying to remember the name of the hotel. It was one of these hotels where Prince stays when he's in town, one of these high-end hotels. And just getting out of the environment did a lot for me. But I want to thank the social workers and the people that work in foster care, because it's not easy. You know, the people that you have, you know, vetting the parents, and some of the parents aren't, I mean, I can tell you some stories, that's all I can say. I can tell you some stories, but, you know, the passion that goes into it, and the caring for the kids. And just to make sure I don't forget this part of the story, as I got older and it was time to go to college and everything, one of the things that I really benefited from was that whole transitional program. You know, and back then, I don't know what it's called now, I think it was called Youth in Transition. And the Youth in Transition program for me was, I went down to ADS McKinley Educational Services, I saw Silas Permit. Man, if it wasn't for that man, I don't know where I would be after I aged out. So I said, look, I'm a foster kid, I'm aging out, I'm not gonna have a place to stay. He said, okay, we're gonna get you into a dorm room. And he pulled out the applications. I had Tougaloo, I had Rusk College in Tougaloo, Mississippi, and Alabama State. And the only reason I went to Alabama State is because their semester was starting sooner, right? And I needed a place to stay. So I packed up a trunk. I went there sight unseen. I didn't know nothing about the college. I went there. I got a dorm. They put me on that youth and transition program. I got a stipend. I got a part-time job. Went to my school, and you know, the rest is history, as they say, because I came out, and luckily I kind of fell into an area of technology. So I went to work for Egghead Software, and that led me to working for such companies as Hewlett Packard and companies like that. So, but all of that really is, like I said, no matter how bad I thought about foster care, I had to look back and say, well, that gave me the foundation, and that gave me the pathways to make it where I made it. And honestly, I have to say, if it wasn't for ADS McKinley, I don't necessarily know if I'd be standing here today. I'd either be locked up or dead. And once again, I want to balance it out. I've got stories. I've got war stories. I've got the bad stories. But I'm focusing on the good things that this agency has done for me. And one of the things that happened, I'm going to go back to my story with Ruth Lee. So Ruth Lee, when I came to live with her, I had been working part-time. So I drove to my last 2 placements. I drove myself.
Wow.
And then, you know, the foster parents are kind of like, I don't know about this. But Ruth Lee, what was really interesting about Ruth Lee, they always had a new character. And when I came to live with her, I want to say maybe about a couple months into it, because I was kind of waiting to go. I think I was maybe waiting to go off to college. It was like the last placement. She handed me the keys to her Cadillac, and she said, go pick up your father. He worked at the CHA. He was a janitor there. And every day at 3 o'clock, she'd hand me the key because she was happy to have somebody that could drive to go pick up. And then she let me use the car, you know, big coupe de ville. You know, I mean, she's very trusting. But it comes full circle in the sense that back then she brought in a kid while I was in college. She brought in a kid who had autism, Eric Thomas. Yeah. And you know, Eric had, you know, I mean, he was a handful. And that's when I met Kunta, and that's when I later on in life, after I graduated and got with my wife and everything, we took him to Disney World, tried to change him. That didn't quite work. But the end result was that as Mrs. Lee got older, she needed a place to stay. And by that time, I had become somewhat of a real estate investor. I had bought some homes, and I let her move into mine. And she lived in my home until she passed away. And I was there when she passed away. But it was so, it felt good to complete the circle. She took care of me, and I took care of her. And then I inherited it from her. I wish it was the Cadillac required. Let's make this. I inherited Eric because she had adopted Eric. And after her husband died and after she died, that was left Eric without a guardian. And my main concern about Eric was because then he's entering back into the system. He's going into Exili. And my big concern was I felt he needed an advocate. So I've advocated for him, and we've had some pretty hairy instances, but you know, that's my gift. So Eric, my foster brother, I'm now his guardian. And you know, I think, I mean, there's so much more that I could say, but I just kind of wanted to share that story with you and just let you know that all of that came from the encounters that I had with people that worked at the and they instilled a sense of, you know, take care of one another, you know, and reach back and grab the next person and help them out. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I set a timer, and I think I'm right on time. So I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Miss Almedia excellent.
Yeah.
We had Almedia, her sister, her brother at one time. And one day I was in Whole Foods, and I see this pretty little girl going down the aisle. She's putting together, I think, delivery stuff. And I'm looking at her. She looks at me. Miss Almedia. What started us being in touch with each other again, and I'm so grateful about it.
Everybody. Hi, y'all, beautiful people. Okay, so I don't remember exactly how old I was. I know I was under the age of 5 when I entered into foster care, and it was with Ada McKinley, and I just remember just throughout that experience and that process of going from home to home to home, just knowing that the one thing that stayed consistent when I was like a preteen is that we would always just be at Ada McKinley, like having our visits with my mom and my dad and my auntie and my uncle and my sister. We would all come together, and that was the one thing that felt familiar when you're going through all of these different experiences. So I want to thank Ms. Edwards. I want to thank Ms. Baker, Ms. Vicky, thank you very much. Thank you. And Donna Johnson, because I remember them from my experience in Ada McKinley, and I remember they were always so nice to my family. I think it's so dope that we're doing the whole picture thing back here, because Ms. Edwards, we used to have like I think it was like a Polaroid camera or something. You always used to do the same thing when I was in Ada McKinley, and it was nice that you all would bring families together to take pictures, so that even though we weren't together, we felt like we were together when we were having visits at Ada McKinley, and we could see each other in the playroom. So I'm not done yet. Yeah, I really want to thank these women and the men. You look really familiar, by the way. Just for bringing us all together. When I was in Ada McKinley, we would have like the summer like trips to Springfield for some fair. We would have all types of activities that brought us together. Ms. Baker, she when I was like 13 or 14, I had experienced being in a lot of foster homes at the time, and Ms. Baker decided to nominate me to be president of the Youth and Care Program. I don't know if you remember the Youth and Care Program. And Ms. Baker, she was like, I think you'll be really good at this. And basically what that is that foster kids would come up with events for other foster kids. So you come together, and you organize the food and the events, and it gave me this opportunity to just like focus on helping other youth and inspiring other youth. And she let me do my poems at the events and just do motivational speaking. And I wasn't even a teenager yet, but I had these experiences to just be in front of a platform and to kind of give service. She also gave me so many nice clothes because I was so skinny, and she just gave me all of her nice clothes.
Carol Baker. Yeah, she was a fashion diva.
Yeah, she was, and I was so tiny, and she was like, you can have this, you can have that. And my foster parents really appreciated her because, even though I wasn't into brands, it was so nice that this woman did not have to, she didn't have to come and visit me after work. She didn't have to give me stuff. She didn't have to put me up, Ms. Edwards, and it's so great to see that you're still doing this, that you're still here. I think it's so beautiful. We have so much going on in our community, and to see that we're still coming together, like I really feel like Ms. Edwards, you deserve like all types of awards. As McKinley, you deserve all types of awards, like just being acknowledged on a bigger platform, because this is what's happening in our community. Us supporting each other, supporting our youth. Like we don't see this. This isn't put to the upfront of like what's going on and like the news, but we really are still finding ways to come together. Come on, let's out. I just want to say lastly that if it wasn't for Ada's McKinley, just making my family feel comfortable. Like my mother, she really struggled with drugs, but she would come into the office. She like, hey, she had all this big energy, and the staff loved her at Ada McKinley, and we would have our family business and stuff, and it just felt like home, even though we knew that the visit was only like 2 hours or whatever. So I just want to say, amongst the chaos, beauty exists. And I think Ada McKinley is a beautiful organization. I thank you for all the support you gave me. I don't know, like, as me being an artist and a writer, I feel like a lot of it is because I had that support, and I had a lot of things to focus on instead of focusing on the chaos. I was able to focus on the beauty and the support. Thank y'all. Can I share a poem real quick? It's called Wait. Little one, I hope you listen to this. I hope this inspires you. But this poem I wrote, because I'm a writer and actor in the city, and it's just so important to get to our creative side, because it's a lot. It's a lot for y'all as like staff here, for anyone who's foster parents, like to just deal with this and to have to deal with the stresses of like working and like family life and violence in the city. But I wrote this poem called Wait. Wait. Don't be in a hurry to gain the desires of your heart. Life is but a process, and living it is a form of art. Don't be so fast with the money that you have. Splurging may be fun now, but you'll regret the aftermath. Take your time with inner peace. Keep it stored up and well stocked. And when you're overflowing in self-discovery, set new goals that can be topped. Be patient with your body. Let it grow and heal and change. It's a vessel of our divine spirits, an expression of the earth in which we came. Wait for love and its timing. This one thing is truly essential. Love born of desperation will be short-lived and temperamental. Wait and be patient, for the best life has to offer. If you give things time to grow, you will surely see them prosper. And I feel like because throughout my process in Ada McKinley, and just like in foster care overall, it seemed crazy at the time, but the older I get, the more I see that life is beautiful, and life is a process, and it's worth like waiting now. It seems crazy at the time, but it's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Foster, met this young man when he wasn't really sure. He and his sister, his twin sister, Nasra, were in the program for a long time. And, there are people that catch you. You meet them, they'll catch you. He's one of those people that will catch you. So you never really lost touch. But I want, for all of you social workers in the room, I want you to hear social work is alive and well and living in Mr. Quasi. Spoken word is alive and well and living in Mr. Quasi. And his beautiful boys and his daughter are alive and well and living. Come on up.
How you guys doing today? It is such a pleasure and honor to be here, first of all. I just want to focus on a lot of the positive things. I know that sometimes, you know, in social services we find ourselves being bombarded with all of the negative stories of kids dying and getting abused and, you know, all of that stuff. And I went through a lot of difficult homes as well, but you know, one thing I want to focus on is my third and final foster home, which was the Sykes family. They took us in, and from the beginning we entered their home, they treated us like we were their own children. And I always loved her for that. She had 3 children of her own, 3 grown children of her own, and yet she still took us in and allowed us to be, you know, hers. What makes Ada S. McKinley so special is, like, I always remembered as a child coming here for the services. Like, you know, people like Faye Edwards, Dr. Don Dixon, and others who made it great to feel like some honor of being a foster child. Like, it was always, like, I was always proud, you know, when I was coming in here. It was like I was part of a new family, and I love that. So if it wasn't for this program, I don't think that I would be where I am today. And so I'm very thankful for the programs here, the people that have been in my life that's here. And if I convey anything, I want everyone who works in social services, like, you might have a difficult child, you might have a difficult case. What I want you to know is that you never know what your input in a child is going to blossom. You know, sure, as a teenager growing up, I know that I gave some difficult moments to some of my caseworkers and things like that, but I always came across people who were invested. Like, they didn't care about my attitude, they didn't care about, you know, me having a bad day or whatever. Like, they stayed invested and stayed focused on the goal, and that was for me to be a successful adult getting out of the system. And I always appreciated that, you know. And of course, when you're in this situation, you feel like, oh man, this sucks, and, you know, other people get to be with their families. But as I grew up, I realized that Ada S. McKinley was such a blessing. And I just want you guys to know that, you guys that work here, like, consider it joy to work with the people that you work with. Because as I grew up, I became, you know, I got my social work degree, and now I work with children. And it was only because I seen the work that people like you put in. You know, it was because of your diligence, of your consistency, your love, that I was to be able to be like, okay, you know what? Because people did it for me, I want the same thing for other kids like myself. And so I've had the opportunity to work for an organization called SAFI, which is Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth in Maryville, Indiana. I've been with them for 4 years. And after that, I went to a program called St. Francis Center. And it's a 24-hour facility for foster youth and adoptive youth and bio kids who come in court appointed. And so I still do that till this day. And it's a blessing. And so without taking too much time, I wanted to encourage all of the workers here that work in social services. And so I just got a poem for you guys. You are loved. You are appreciated. Your sacrifice doesn't go unnoticed. You don't just help people. You sow seeds of compassion in unsuspecting soil. You lessen the pain of the weary. You speak living water to the roots of people's problems. You touch souls of the broken. Your compassion is ointment to painful verbal cuts that's on children from hateful parents. You don't just manage cases, you manage future success stories from the ashes of burnt down memories.
Yes.
You lay verbal bridges on the roads of the fearful. You don't just provide good homes, you provide strong towers of safety, and those that run into you are safe. Your smile interrupts confusion on the minds of our youth. If you had to be built from scratch, you will be built with the sweetness of life, and your clothes will be protective armor that deflects burnout. You are not just a social worker, you are a vessel of hope. Keep helping.
Parents were bad. I ran away. 17, like I taught. Wanted to finish school. So I did that. But there were people here. It's a dangerous job. And it is. It's, man, but I can leave. I had a bad experience. What about?
Exactly. I like honesty.
But you're here.
Yes.
And you're whole. And you're looking wonderful. And at some point along the line, something good dropped into you, and something that you had came out of you. And that's all we're grateful. We don't need you to say, oh, Ada was wonderful. We don't need that. Because people need to know that being a caseworker in this field can be thankless, but it can also be rewarding. And thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
I like you.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I have to say that Mike told me when I told him we were doing this, he said, you know what? They kept me alive. They kept me alive. So, you know, I'll say that, and I know he's had a great relationship with social worker.
You are the company.
Yeah, we established a lifelong relationship. We were in placement together.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we've stayed connected all this time.
That's wonderful.
I'm Anne Marie Davis. I worked here previously for 18 years. Started as a social worker, team lead, that's group with Donna Johnson, and then I went over to the shelter. So together, it was 18 years. I think I was half and half, 9 and 9, and it's still my home. I still love Miss Edwards with every drop of my heart.
Can't help but.
I work at night now, so I've been up since yesterday, but I'm here just for her.
All right.
It's good to see everyone.
I call her Earth Mother. And I call her Earth Mother because when I met Anne, I had no idea. Well, she had it. I didn't know her. But she had these children. Where she paid somebody off to make her kids great. I don't know where she paid. All of them. All of them have turned into this wonderful, fabulous human beings. And she, when she left us, she became a foster parent and took one of our most our children medically, not behaviorally necessarily that too, but medically. And she loved her with an unbounded love. And her family does too. So I look on Facebook and, oh, she's with this one, so-and-so, and they're in California, and they're doing this, and so-and-so's coming home, and Earth Mother, we thank you. Because you put the same kind of love into the kids that you serve. And that's remarkable to me.
I got a good experience from yesterday. Real good experience. Ms. Poindexter asked me to take a kid, 16-year-old kid, to this job placement thing where they teach the young kids how to dress and what to say, and how to look for a job and how to do a resume. And it was a good experience for the kid. He was really excited. A little kid right out next to Argyle Gardens. Everybody know how the gardens are set up. The kid was just, he was happy. So when we was riding back, and the man called me, who he was talking to, he called me, he says, man, this was a good experience for him. He's gonna be all right. I was like, man, that's good. Because Ms. Poindexter already told me, she says, she did all this paperwork and then put a little notation on it and said, really nice kid. So we leave from down there, and I remember something that my mom did. At 16, my mom did not believe in the summertime you about to chill in the crib.
Right.
My mama believed in the summertime you about to go work. Summer program, park district, something. And the young man said to me, he says, man, my auntie, she told me that I can't sit around here. I got to get up and do something. So Ms. Poindexter put me in the hands of this man. He said, but I put an application in at Walmart's on 111th and Doty. I said, good. I said, are you ready to work? He was like, yes, I'm ready to work. I said, you a good kid in school? He was like, yes, I'm a good kid in school. Before I knew it, I found my truck going into Walmart from 111th. Because he told me he put the application in already. I called Ms. Poindexter. I said, Ms. Poindexter, do you mind me going in here and talking to the manager and getting this boy this job? She's like, oh, sure. Go ahead, I'm going on in there. I go inside of the Walmarts and I asked the yellow jacket people. I said, can I see a manager? And I was telling the young man is when you meet people, you speak with a tone. When you extend your hand with a grip, and you have eye contact with a person. Let them know that you're serious about the job. So we going over the situation in my truck. We get inside Walmart, and the manager says, hi, I'm the manager. I told her who I was, and I said, this is Mr. He says, how you doing? And shook the lady's hand. And the lady began to ask questions, and I said, listen, this is a good kid. I said, this is a real good kid. I don't even know the kid, but I'm going on with Ms. Poindexter said. But from the time we left the north side and our conversation from the north side to 111, I didn't get a bad vibe. So I'm telling the lady, this is a good kid. I said, this kid, he wants to work. I says, and I believe in helping the kids out. Let's get them off the streets. Let's get them something to do. Park districts is shut down. This is shut down. Let's get these kids something to do. He's 16. He really want to work. The lady looked at the boy and said, you really want to work? He was like, yes, I really want to. She says, did you fill out an application? He said, yes, I filled out an application. The lady got on the phone, called in the back to the recruiting people back there. The lady said, take that man's number, get the young man's number. We're calling for a second interview next week coming up. So I, without even thinking, I was telling somebody here at the office, I like what I do at Ada. I love it. But I believe my purpose is to mentor young guys. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the guys don't know how to tie a tie. They don't know what to look like when they go on an interview. I was telling them, one of the young ladies that was sitting there, she said, oh my God, Mr. Dennis, you have those tattoos. I said, but when I came for the job, they never knew that. I had a mohawk, but I slicked it down when I came for the job. They never knew that. You understand what I'm saying? And I just think we have to empower the youth. We have to show them. They don't know. We have to show them in all these broken homes and all that. Listen, we have to show them. So I was like, man, I know my purpose. I love what I do at Ada. I like talking to the kids. But my purpose, I believe, is to help them young guys out. Because I came from them streets. I know how it is. And if it wasn't for my mother and my father, I tell all the time, listen, man, I thank God I didn't have to go through what a lot of the people went through. You know what I'm saying? I thank God I didn't have to, because I don't know what I would have done. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. To hear y'all's story, man, be wearing me out. Really, it wears me out. And I'm only grateful to the God I serve that I never had to go through. You understand what I'm saying? And man, I just sitting here today, I'm glad I text Miss Edwards. I said, is it mandatory that I have to be there? And she sent me one word. Yes. I said all my business back, and I'm kind of glad that I did, man. But man, that was I'm glad I stayed to the end, man. Y'all stories really empower, man, and just to hear, I mean, when we go home sometimes we be like, man, I'm sick of this. But just to really think about it, I'm telling the truth. But to think about it, man, it's something good that we're doing. It just shows it, and that was good stuff.
I wrote a book about my early experience coming into foster care from the age of 6 to 9. It's called Lewis Runs Away, and it's available on Amazon. And I'll make it available to everyone here for the next 3 days for free. You can go up there, it's an ebook, you can download it. The other thing is, I am also an actor. I met Almedia on set. She was set to play my daughter in the show Crisis. And they ended up swapping us out, and I ended up with a son. But along with that, I am in a movie called Market Value. It's available on Amazon Prime. I have a small role. And it's about, believe it or not, it's about an unwanted pregnancy where the woman sells her kid and then she comes back and wants the kid back. So it's interesting because it is about adoption and so on. But check it out on Amazon Prime. Thank you so much. Sorry I knew I was going to say something.
I'm happy you forgot to say something, because I forgot to say something. Eli. I met Eli and Nasra, his sister. This is another beautiful experience that I'm talking about. I was in a foster home, and I think this is when you were with that family you mentioned. I was in a foster home. I was a little girl, and I moved around a lot. And when I found out he was here, I knew his sister's name because she told me a cool way to spell it. She was like Nasarah. I was a little kid when I met his sister and him. And this is the whole beauty experience. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I was in a foster home. That foster home didn't work out. They weren't that great. But they used to always send us to the home that they were at. And Nasra, she taught me how to bike ride. She was like a big sister to me. And I didn't even realize she was in the system at the time. I just knew that there was this older kid who was treating me like a little sister. And I'll never forget Nasra. When I realized he was here, he recorded me. So I said, hey. I'll never forget her because, I'll never forget her because, and we ran into each other at the Ada McKinley picnics that we used to have. So I ran into her years later. But she, just as a little kid, as a little girl, in a foster home that wasn't so great, and then for them to send us down to their foster home, they used to give us free fruit and everything, and to just have an older kid treat me, really nice, an older girl, just being a young girl, having this girl treat me like I was a sister, a friend, teaching me stuff. I feel like she was my protector, and that's one of those beautiful moments. Like, even when you're dealing with pain around you, to know that you can find love and respect and sisterhood somewhere else. I think that's what makes not just Ada McKinley beautiful, but our community beautiful, because you never know where you're going to meet somebody and they're going to change your life and it's going to live with you forever. That experience is going to live with me forever because I was a little girl and she treated me like she was my big sister. Okay.
This has really been phenomenal. It's a great reminder. All of these full circle moments. When Almedia came in, she said, "What? Is that Eli?" Yes, it is. She was so excited. It's Nasra here. So these full circle moments really mean a lot when you stop and think about them and how it brought you to where you are. And back to where I remember going to Miss Lee's funeral service that you did a fantastic job. I mean, it honored her. It was beautiful like her. And I was just so amazed at her. So all of these moments have been really, really